Does Judaism require us to act on our values in the public square? For me, this is really an issue of politics. And I want to acknowledge that politics today doesn't mean what it used to mean. Today, politics refers to what candidates we are for or against, what agendas we support or oppose. But that understanding doesn't reflect its original meaning. The word comes from the title of Aristotle's treatise concerning politica, literally the matters concerning the city. Aristotle taught that humanity is a political animal, meaning that we, by nature, form relationships, connections, and alliances with our neighbors. To be political is to be social, and our need to connect is not only emotional, but also moral. It's our ability to distinguish right from wrong, and our partnership with others in those values is what makes a city-state. Politics is the path or the art of how we share our moral sensibilities with our neighbors, how we express our understanding of what's right, and participate in the process of shaping our society. So I think that that definition is what's going to be most helpful in this issue discussing. The Jewish prophets understood their role as political. While it's the role of the official, the judge, or the king to administer society, Judaism has long understood social criticism, which finds its greatest fulfillment in prophecy, to be a necessary religious addition to the political system. The critique of the state starts during the dawning of prophecy in Israel and continues through to the end and rebirth of Judea. Amos railed against an unfair system of taxation. Isaiah is unafraid to challenge the elders and officers of God's people who pervert their power. And Habakkuk protests even duress foreign policy. Even more than the Torah itself, the Talmud, the massive 4th century volumes of Jewish text, define Jewish tradition as we know it. The Talmud addresses the questions of legal structures that keep society together, damages and compensation, torts, property law, land ownership, entitlements, restrictions, criminal procedures, cities of refuge, oaths and their consequences, legal disputations, and the list goes on and on. There are countless passages about balancing private interests with public needs, exploring the boundaries of individual rights and the role of public powers. These issues are the negotiation of politics, and they are our sacred literature. The Talmud is not just endless discussions about what makes a meat fork kosher or not, although that's there too. The Talmudic sages, Rav, Rabbi Hanina, Rabbi Yochanan, and Rav Chaviva outline concentric circles of our political responsibility. Each of us is first responsible for our household, next for our neighbors, then for our townsfolk, and ultimately for every person in the world. They teach that we are responsible for strangers on the far side of the planet as we are for the livestock of the elderly people who live next door. These are not modern day liberal or conservative perspectives. These are 1st century rabbinic perspectives of what it means to be a responsible Jew. Rabbi Hanina taught that the sages themselves should be held account for failing to protest the sins of the princes, namely the non-Jewish governors and rulers who established the law of the land. Failure to eradicate the sins of society itself is a sin. Speaking truth, whether it to be our neighbors or to people with political power, is our inheritance from the prophets who maintained a formidable position in the rabbinic era as well. The intense focus of our sages on the political points to the reality that Judaism is not a religion like we see around us. While much of the religion we see around us focuses on our private relationship with God, separate from the civic sphere, Judaism, first and foremost, refers to a people, Yisrael, and the Torah provides a moral vision to be implemented in every aspect of life, from prayer and study, to interpersonal relationships, to business and commerce, and to law and governance. While it's clear that our Jewish tradition is concerned with the political world, the problem that we experience in our synagogue community is whose politics? The problem many of us have with hearing politics in shul is that it's not my politics. And this is a serious issue. It's very challenging to come into a sacred community, one that reflects our deep connection with Judaism and the Jewish people, and feel like there's only room for somebody else's version about how to make the world a better place. The term tikkun olam, repairing the world, was first made popular in the Jewish world by the Kabbalistic community of Rabbi Isaac Luria in 16th century Sfat in northern Israel. And the brilliance of the Lurianic model of tikkun olam is the suggestion that human behavior can have an effect, positive and negative, on the world as a whole. Mitzvot, both ethical and ritual, have an impact even beyond the immediate effect of the action. And the term tikkun olam more or less disappeared from popular usage between the 16th century and the 1950s, when the concept reemerged as the new shorthand for social justice. The term gained currency in the 1970s and 1980s as the liberal progressive Jewish world began to emerge as an entity separate from the so-called mainstream organizational world. And in its current incarnation, tikkun olam can refer to anything from a direct service project, such as working in a soup kitchen or a shelter, to fighting anti-Semitism, to political action, to philanthropy. As a Jewish community, we cannot shy away from our mission to be a light unto the nations. Too much is at stake in our world right now. In the lifetimes of many of us here, we have smashed the atom, cracked the genetic code, pierced the veil of outer space, and placed the corpus of human knowledge at the fingertips of billions. And in a world in which you can do anything, what you should do, the moral questions, is the fundamental challenge facing humanity. And on that question, the religious communities of the world, including the Jewish community, have urgent, profound, and indispensable wisdom to offer. The key is how we engage these questions as a sacred community in a way that strengthens our relationships with each other, not weakens them. We need to find ways not to avoid difficult conversations about what we think should happen in the world on issues of immigration, on issues of climate change, on issues of economics. But we need to be able to actually talk with them and wrestle with them like our ancient sages do. The key is to really listen, to hear the values that animate the perspective of the person that we're talking to, and be able to honor them and respect them for those values. Even if their way forward and their proposal is something different, something that we disagree with, we can be able to engage and wrestle with these issues from not only a place that bridges mutual understanding, but that comes from a place of Jewish values.